So today we're going to be going over extractions in Photoshop. So we're going to start by creating a new document. Open your Photoshop window and go ahead and create new. I'd like you to select 8 by 8 inches, a nice square format at 300 pixels per inch. That should give us, when we change back to 2400 pixels by 2400 pixels, because 8 times 300 is 24. That should give us a nice high resolution photo to play around with. So we're going to go ahead and hit create, and you should get into this main screen. Now if you don't see what I'm seeing, go to workspaces and just reset the essentials workspace, so this way everything turns up the way it's looking on my screen. Our toolbar is on the left. You should always be on the move tool. V is the keyboard shortcut for that. As you can see, there's a background layer here. I'm going to double click it and call it white, just so I have it unlocked, and this way I can always turn it off and on, and it's just able to be moved around. So the thing that we're going to be doing today is talking about how to take things and extract them from photographs and use them and compile them together to create one really interesting new surreal photograph. There's a lot of tools that we will be using, and we will be using the layers mask heavily in this tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just paint the a new layer. So I'm going to start by hitting this little plus button at the bottom right of my layers palette and just clicking it once. And I'm going to call this layer blue. And I'm going to paint this layer in blue. And notice how it's selected. And then I'm going to go to my gradient tool, G. And if I click and hold on the gradient tool, I should see the paint bucket tool. That's the one you want. And I will take my foreground color, just like in Illustrator, except this one is foreground background. And I am going to choose a nice blue, maybe something like this, and I'm going to go ahead and paint it in. And as you can see, that has completely filled up that square with blue, because that's how I have it set up. Now by default you should have the tolerance up here set to 32, anti-alias will be on, those things. We'll talk a little bit more about filling and those kinds of things, but that's how you do it. Going back to the move tool at this point. So I'm going to show you now how to like cut holes in layers, cut things out. We're going to start with the tool right below the move tool, which is the Marquee tool, a rectangular marquee. If you click and hold, you have two options. You have an ellipse and you have a rectangle. If you click, hold, and drag, you can make any shape you want. If you hold the shift key down, you can make a square. And by selecting that, you've created a square that you can still move around. As long as you're on the rectangular marquee tool, you can move it around. You'll see the smart guides show up, and we could just center that perfectly. You can add to this. This is a selection. Currently I haven't done anything, and it's on the blue layer, so I'm selecting those pixels in the blue layer, and that's how it kind of works. If you wanted to add extra to this selection, if you hold the shift key down, you'll notice that the button becomes a marquee button has a little plus. That means I can now draw an additional square and let go, and that is adding to the selection. If I hold the option key down, just the opposite happens. And on all the selection tools, shift adds, option subtracts. So as you can see, if I draw a rectangle, it's subtracting. Now if you want to be more precise when you're creating a selection, I'm going to hold the shift key down and add, and say I want to add something perfectly where it lines up on the top here and the top here, but gets everything else in. If I want to, holding the space bar while I'm creating the selection allows me to move that selection around. This is really important. You're going to be using this a lot. So if I let go of the space bar, I'm able to change the size, but holding the space bar allows me to kind of just dial in where I want that selection to happen, and then letting go of the space bar allows me to finish that selection and then let go. And because I added to the selection, it added everything inside, which was everything. Now, what can we do with this selection? Well, you could hit delete, and as you can see, I'm going to turn off the white layer so you can see below it. It actually created a hole. It's a permanent hole in this layer. That hole will never go away. If I needed that blue back, I would need to undo, Command Z, a couple of times. Shift, and in fact, Option Command Z. Let's see, Shift Command Z. I'm using the history palette here. It should be Option Commands. I'm going to deselect. That's the problem. I'm opening up the history window, by the way, so that you can actually see what I've done step by step. I filled it, I had a rectangular selection, blah, blah, blah. And you can actually jump back here just like that. And so you can actually go back in time as long as you don't make any changes. Like for instance, if I go here and then I do something like add to the selection, like hold the shift key down, watch what happens to the future history. It goes away, right? So as long as you, and I'm going to undo this a couple times, go forward there. As long as you don't make any changes, you should still be able to go back in time to get to where you need to be. Anyway, one way to get rid of this hole or make a hole is to hit the delete button. But this is the more the way that most people in Photoshop use the selection tools to create holes or to create to create selections. They use the image mask. So notice this layer is blue. And I'm going to click once on the image mask. And because I've selected that area, it's actually popping a hole through the blue. Now this is exactly the opposite of deleting the inside. It's actually deleted everything on the outside. And so what I see on this mask is that the white is allowing me to see only the blue on the top. So it's only, everywhere there's white, I am seeing what's on that layer. Everywhere there's black is completely transparent. Now this is a separate object, so I could actually paint in this if I wanted to or do things to it. One of the things that I want to do right away is the opposite of what I did. So I have this as something I'm seeing. I want to see this as a whole. And the way you do that is just select that layer and invert it. So you can go to select and then invert layer. Where is that image? It's Command I, which is normally the way people do it. So this is why I'm wondering, where is the Command I? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it with the keyboard shortcut, which you should know. Command I, because I was in the last tutorial, will invert this layer. So that makes the black white and the white black. And you'll notice now that I do have a hole in this blue layer. But the cool part about this is that hole is not permanent. I can always select it here and unlink these two. That means that they're now totally independently movable. Go to my move tool and you'll see that I'm able to move that hole around anywhere I want. The blue layer is always there, but this hole is created because of this mask layer. So I can see through the black part and I can't see through the white part. What makes it really interesting is when you use the brush tool, B for brush, that gives you the ability to just draw with white and black or any other color you actually want. So I'll say I'm going to select black, and the way I select black is just hit D for default and then X so that I'm drawing with black. I'm going to use the bracket keys to increase the size, and then notice what I can do. I can actually draw a hole, and I'm drawing on this layer. Now if I drew on this layer, you would see that nothing's happening because I'm drawing in the layer. But if I drew here, so make this black for instance because I was drawing with the same color, you'll see that I'm drawing right on this layer. That's not what I want. I want to draw on the mask, and when I draw in black, the black makes everything transparent. I can see through it. So if I zoom in, you can kind of see I'm drawing into that layer. So this is the nice part about a mask, is that it's non-destructive. So whatever was on that layer will stay on that layer. And if you make a mistake, so I'm going to hit the X button to shift it to white, and I'm going to expand this brush tool, you can see I can bring back what I hid on that layer. So that's the idea behind a mask. It actually, if it's all white, it's not working at all. And if you draw in black or various shades of gray, grays we're going to give you semi-transparent. So you can kind of see there's still a blue tint here. Whereas if I drew in pure black and make the brush size a little smaller here, you can see the gray, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, the option key down and click on this layer so you can actually see the drawing on this layer. Holding the option key down again brings it back to here. So the idea for this image mask is that everything black is transparent, everything white is visible, and we can see it, the blue here. Okay, what I'd like you guys to do now is go to File, Open, and I want you to go to the extraction folder, and what we're going to do is we're going to open up shark number 1. And what that will do is it will open it in a new tab. You can see the tab is right up here, and what we're seeing is a shark right here. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to take this shark, select it, and then bring it into this document. So I'm going to select the shark layer. I want you to notice that this shark is at 100%. That means it's 100% full size, whereas here we had it at 48%. You can kind of see that up here as well. That means if I were to zoom in till I'm 100%, this is actually how big the layer is compared to the other layer that's 100%. Just something to note. So I'm going to go to the shark layer, and the first selection tool we're going to select, I'm going to hit the W key to get us there, and you'll see that there is an object selection tool. This is the newest tool, and the idea for the object selection tool is that Photoshop will completely guess for you what to select if you draw it. So for instance, if I marquee around this this shark, again, I can hold the space bar. If I messed up and didn't get his nose, I'm holding the space bar, and then I can modify that. And if I let go, you'll see that the computer is trying to figure out like what's important, what is shark and what's not shark. And lo and behold, here's a selection for the shark. I could then go edit copy, and then going here, I could go edit paste in place or paste. And you'll notice that the shark actually does come in. Of course, it's missing some pieces, and you can kind of see it's a pretty good selection, but the problem is it's not a perfect selection. Things are missing back here. You can see that when I made the selection, it didn't quite get everything that was supposed to be selected here. So what would you do in that case? Well, I'm going to undo this. You would then add to the selection with the next tool that we're going to be working with, which is the Lasso Tool, and something that I use quite a bit. It's a little bit like the pen tool in Illustrator. So for instance, right above that quick selection, that object selection tool is this lasso tool, and what I usually use is the polygon lasso. And the way it works is I'm going to hold the shift key to add to the selection. I'm just going to click inside somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to let go of the shift key, and what I'm going to do is just click, 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 click. I'm not double clicking because double clicking will end a selection, but I'm just kind of clicking around a little tiny bit at a time. And this allows me to take my time, get really close, and then pick up that selection, and then double click, and you'll notice that actually selected this little area. The same thing here. I'm going to zoom in so we can see it, but I'm going to hold the shift key down out here, click once, and now let go of the shift key because it's already in the added selection mode. And I'm just going to select this, and you can see with the lasso, you can kind of just get what you need. So we're going to look around, see how the rest of the shark is looking. It's looking pretty good, except maybe here, holding the shift key down, starting on the inside, and that's going to allow me to add and make this fin a little bit sharper. So this is how you would use that object selection tool in general with the some of the other tools to select something. Like here's an area where I could hold the shift key down to start the selection. Just needs to be a little smoother. Now, if you have a Wacom tablet, you might want to just use the regular lasso tool without the polygon, just a regular one, and that would allow you to draw the area that you needed. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this selection. Now, because I've selected this on a background, this is not going to work, but I'm going to double click this, hit OK. Now this is a layer that can have a layer mask, and I'm going to click the layer mask. And if I do that, the nice part is now I have the shark. It's totally cut out, but I have the ability, if I made a mistake somewhere, anywhere, like here, I might feel like this should be smoother. I can go into this layer mask and actually draw in with the brush tool, B for brush, and then make it smaller. And now I'm going to draw in like white because I want to add to this area. So I'm going to hit the X button to switch this to white, and then I'm just going to draw in, and you can now see that I'm actually drawing in back again what was taken out. So this is the nice part about using a layer mask, is that it's never permanent. It's always available for you. Now, how do we get this entire layer mask and this layer into this document? Well, one way to do it is just to open up the shark layer tab and move it out of the way, and notice that it's still selected. And notice that the layer here is still available. And if I were to click on the background, you'll notice that everything goes away. So just be aware that you want to kind of see both at the same time. And then all I have to do is take this layer and physically drag it into this area. And now I've actually copied this layer into a different document. So this now has been copied into this document. You can kind of see how that works. And I'm going to just physically use the move tool, V for move, and I'm going to move it around, and you can kind of see that's my first shark for today. And I'm going to take this original thing that I did just to show you how masks work, and I'm going to toss this in the trash. So you can kind of see I can just physically take that adjustment layer, that mask layer, and throw it in the trash, and it says, should I apply this ugly thing or should I just delete it straight up? And I'm just going to delete it. And so that's how you delete an image mask. So I'm going to type this, I'm going to type shark 1, and I'm going to just move this out of the way over here. And you can kind of see this is how big the shark is relative to our document, relative to that other document that where it looked like it was filling up the entire document. So you be aware that when you take images from the internet, you want to make sure they have enough resolution for you to actually work with. So I don't need the shark anymore. I've already brought it into my document, so I'm not going to save this shark. But I'd like to save this shark layer because now we've actually done something. So I'm going to go File, Save, and you'll notice by default, Photoshop document PSD will be saved. I'm going to save this in my extraction folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit save after I title it extraction extraction 1. Okay. So that's our first tool, or I guess two tools if you think of the Marquee tool and the Lasso tool, as well as the Object Select tool. This is by default the one you want to try first. If it doesn't work, we'll go to the next tool. I'm going to stop this now, and you can now watch part 2. Don't forget to save at this point.